So as I sit down and film today's episode, it's almost a year since I had my gay awakening. So it is something that I have settled, but for the purposes of trying to keep things as balanced and real as possible, I wanted to attempt to sit down today and express and explain the duality of the emotions involved in coming to this self-discovery, as well as having to say goodbye to the straight version of myself.
Welcome to the Becoming Space podcast. This is where we break the rules of who we should be and step into the truth of who we are. I'm Zisha, and here we explore the moments that change us, the stories that shape us, and the deep knowing that who we are right now is already enough.
So of course, it was so easy for me to jump on for the previous 2 episodes and talk about all of the magical moments and excitement around this awakening. But I want to be super real and super honest. This has not been a walk in the park, and I don't want other people to pop along and listen into this podcast and get the impression that it's all been rainbows. Get the reference? It's led to a lot of goodbyes, and with goodbyes has come a lot of grief. And really, the magic of it all has come from my learnings of learning to dance in the rain. That's such a common saying, and it kind of matches the rainbow reference that I made before. With the rainbow comes the rain. I liked what I did there. That was good. That was unplanned and it was good. I am claiming that one. I put my 100% into working on myself in order to be the absolute best wife I could be. And the universe itself kept pushing me to my absolute breaking point, and none of it was adding up and none of it was making sense to me. Making the decision to end my marriage was the most painful, gut-wrenching, the difficult decision I have had to make in my whole entire life. And being pushed to my absolute limits, it really, I remember describing to my life coach, it really felt as though I had to step on the doorway of hell before I found heaven on earth. That doesn't so much have a religious meaning as such. However, I don't really know how else to put into words what I was feeling without using the description of heaven versus hell. And being at that doorstep, I was the most uncomfortable and lost and clueless as to what on earth was going on I have ever been, and coming to terms with the fact that the universe was actually guiding me to end a commitment that I had made. It was so hard on my heart. It really put me into a position of feeling overload mode. And at that time in my life, I had a constant stream of tears. I wasn't always crying, if that makes sense. Like my body wasn't always like in that crying state. I definitely had periods that was happening too, but in terms of the constant stream of tears, it's just like my eyes were constantly leaking. Even to the point if I went out in public to get some air or just have some me time, the tears would continue. I was in Kuala Lumpur at the time, and I lived in Australia before going full-time traveling, originally from New Zealand. So I was very far from my connections and network. Being in Kuala Lumpur was very healing for me because I was able to hold myself without distractions. And thankfully for me, I have a very strong sense of the higher power and the universe holding me through life. I thankfully never felt lonely, but the tears that came with processing the emotions involved had me crying at Starbucks sipping on my cheeky little hot choc. It was intense and very, very eye-opening to know that I even had, I guess, the bravery or courage to sit in a coffee shop and bawl my eyes out, essentially. The tears were just non-stop. It was crazy. being such a big city, I feel as though I was virtually invisible because everyone is so focused around, or everyone around me was so focused on what they were doing and their life and shopping. So I feel as though, I mean, if people did notice, I was never approached or looked at in a funny way. Do you know what I mean? And it was very healing to do so and take that time for me to let my body process what was going on. I knew that I had to step away from my marriage, but I did not know why. Nothing made sense to me. I had to trust the process. And I had to jump without having any idea what was about to catch me. And it was terrifying and also so soul crushing that I was breaking my promise to my ex-husband. It was not nice at all. It was horrible. It was a really, really, really horrible feeling to go through. And I gave myself full permission to sit with those feelings, cry in public, cry and cry and cry and cry and cry and do all of the crying that I needed to do. And in the following days, that is when I had my gay awakening and everything made sense. It was so intense to experience the duality of these extreme emotions, ranging from so much grief and sadness to, oh my goodness, I've just had the most magical moment of my whole entire life. I have been introduced to the real me. I'd fallen in love with the person I had been searching for my whole entire life, and it was me. My authentic, gay, girly, lesbian me, which was so magical while trying to juggle the loss and grief that I was going through at the opposite end of the spectrum. Now, on top of my choice to separate and my self-discovery of being gay, of course, I was also in an unfamiliar environment that was pushing me out of my comfort zone daily. We're traveling in a place that we'd never been to before. So that was already pushing me to my limits in a very different way. And with that, I want to share the Instagram post that I posted on my stories after I had the realization that I am a gay girly. So I'll read it out. I have not read this in ages, so I'm really excited to review it right now. All right. The amount I've learned about myself from experiencing this city is priceless. People come here and love it, and I can absolutely see why. But I just don't happen to be one of those people. With that being said, I am so thankful to be reunited with a longtime friend. And being reunited with that friend was so incredibly special because we knew each other when we were in university. And then we had met up in Kuala Lumpur the second day that myself and my ex-husband had arrived. Back then, he was my husband. And we met up and had dinner with our husbands. Like, we went from being uni students to catching up 10 years later, all grown up and both had married. Like, it was a really cool experience to live and be with. I actually talk a little bit more about it in one of the other episodes as well, in terms of actually her giving me the courage and confidence to stay in Kuala Lumpur. It just gave me a sense of safety, and I got to know the ins and outs from a local, which was really, really nice. But I've been a little bit sidetracked, so I'll get back to reading this out. And I am so thankful to see the towers in all their beauty. They truly are breathtaking, and I can highly recommend the trip here just for that reason, if nothing else. Overall, the unexpected twists and turns this city has presented to me has really taught me how discomfort had the power to teach me more than reassurance ever has. And that's not to say reassurance hasn't been a huge part of this journey through discomfort. There is no way I could have ever done a trip like this without reassurance from the universe and my nearest and dearest. The balance between both these opposites just happened to be where a piece of magic that was missing within me was found. For that reason, I hold KL with gratitude and an abundance of peace, knowing I don't think I could have found this piece of magic any other way. And that piece of magic was being introduced to the love of my life, who is me, my real, true, authentic, gay girly me. And the duality involved in this whole process and continues to be involved even now, almost a year on, has been a fine dance that I have had the joy and pleasure to learn. Ultimately, knowing that two things can be true at once has rewired my brain in such a powerful, positive, beautiful way, and knowing that both ends of this feeling spectrum don't need to kick one another out, nor have to be invalidated by the other. And that dance of duality, learning how to feel this whole range of human emotions without getting stuck on the hamster wheel, has ultimately given me the confidence to get to where I am today, and also go from not even being able to feel as though I can tell anyone that I am gay, to having the confidence to show up publicly and show others that it is possible for this beautiful tale to exist. Even when we make it to the point where we feel as though we're stepping on the doorway of hell, heaven is possible. And the duality of both of these feelings and learning to dance with both, it's life-changing. It's totally life-changing. And I am so thankful to be sitting here today and be able to reflect on this journey that I've gone through, especially in Kuala Lumpur. I feel like Kuala Lumpur was my time to shine and learn the true meaning of duality and step into an exciting new world of authenticity, all while holding space for the shame, guilt, and grief of letting go of straight Zisha, and also my marriage to a man. It's been intense. It's been a whole journey, and I wouldn't change it for anything, because it's made me who I am today. So just know that it's so normal to go through the really tough emotions, and also know that we get to choose how we hold space for those emotions. And I know that that is such a layered experience to learn. That is not something that happens overnight. And I think it's also really, really important to note that this happened for me across a 5-month span, from when I first signed up with my life coach, which was when I was surviving in life. I was super successful, but something just was not adding up for me. And I'd been in that space for a good while, like a really decent chunk of time, before I was led to that coaching program and signed up and joined that coaching program. So for 5 months, I was doing a lot of inner work and learning a whole new set of tools, not only through the one-on-one coaching that I had signed up for, but also other layers in books, podcasts, and anything that was really, truly aligning for me. I did a lot of meditation, which I know can be really tricky for some people. But I really did dive into the world of meditation to help me rewire and fire my mind to go from surviving to thriving. Obviously, I didn't realize that my surviving to thriving was going to be straight to gay. That's not something I don't think any of us expected. And I think that is the important part of it as well, is just being so open to endless possibilities, because I would have never have predicted this for myself. There's just no possible way that I would have predicted this for myself. And I'm so pleased that I was able to open up to another dimension and world in which I brought this into my reality. I feel as though meditation was huge in coming to the realization that I was gay, because I was actually moving in and out of meditations when the penny dropped for me. So meditation has been really big. I started with 5 minutes a day and worked my way up from there. There was a point that I was doing it for a couple of hours a day. To be honest, I don't do it anymore for that length of time. I would love to do that at some stage in my life because that was really powerful for me. I'm not feeling as though I need it so much at this point in time. I do still do meditations every week, I would say. It's on and off. Sometimes it's daily. Most of the time it's weekly. Something I've recently started that's kind of along the same lines is breath work. I've been doing the Wim Hof breath, which can be found on YouTube. There's a few different variations, so just try a few and see what works for you if you're interested to try it. Of course, if it doesn't align with you, that's all good too. But yeah, meditations back during this process of the self-discovery was such a huge piece in the layers and building blocks to be able to start dancing in the duality of these extreme emotions. Journaling was also huge for me. You either love it or hate it. There's not really an in-between with journaling. For me, it really helped tenfold. I still journal to this day. I journal every single morning. That is the second thing I do when I wake up, is I journal. The first thing is lay in bed and remind myself how grounded and peaceful and wonderful I am as a being and how enough I am. And I ground in those thoughts. And then I pick up my journal and I journal any thought that is on my mind and also thank the universe for another day in paradise. And I think learning that paradise isn't a place in the 3D realm. Paradise is a place within. And this is also a huge life lesson that I had when I was in Kuala Lumpur of realizing another day in paradise is not waking up on a beautiful tropical day with a delicious, refreshing drink in hand. It's actually the life you create now and in the present moment. And sometimes paradise feels like there are not so good emotions on this end of the spectrum, but they're a real important part of creating the paradise within. So I realize this isn't going to resonate with everyone, and that is totally fine. Our journey of becoming is different and unique to us all. And that is the beauty of humanness and humanity, and it's very unique to each and every single one of us. I have the full understanding that we all have very different and unique lives and lifestyles, but my personal belief is the internal game is the same for everyone. We all know what it feels like along the spectrum of feelings. These feelings are activated by different situations and life experiences, but ultimately, as humans, as a whole and as one, we all know what happiness and joy feels like. Excitement, love, passion, peace, all of the above that we all want to feel, right? That's what we would love to ideally all live in. Equally, as humans, it doesn't matter what our lifestyle is or what our 3D reality looks like. We also know what pain, grief, shame, sadness, hurtfulness, depression to a certain extent, anger, shock, fear, the feeling of paralyzation in terms of emotions and not being able to make decisions. All of this spectrum, regardless of the outside physical world that we each live in and the uniqueness of our lifestyles, that is all the same. I'm going to use grief as an example. The loss of something that is so precious to us, usually taken away in the form of a passing. Because my personal perspective on grief has changed so much in the last year. And I had a common understanding that grief is losing someone, something, or some being in the physical world. And that comes in many different forms, usually involving endings or passings. And I've experienced a lot of that form of grief in my lifetime. Going through the process of having to grieve something that didn't exist in this world as of yet, such as the future I'd planned for myself, has been a whole other level and realm of grief that I've never been exposed to ever before until I had to kiss goodbye to my marriage to my ex-husband. And it was truly eye-opening. And it's not a topic that I'd ever heard of or resonated with before. Even perhaps if I had heard of it, maybe it just didn't sink in because I didn't have my own experience in that way. And I think as humans, it's really powerful when we recognize grief is the same feeling, but it shows up very differently in each of our lives. And it can show up very differently at different stages of our lives. My grief for a future that doesn't yet exist, I've never met, I've never been introduced to it. And in that instance, it's not so much what triggered the feeling in the external world, but it's the tools that work for each of us individually to hold us through and past that energetic feeling of grief. It's such a big concept, and it's been one that has absolutely baffled my mind just because I didn't have the lived experience to really comprehend or understand. But now that I describe the feeling as grief from within, rather than describing the situation on the external realm, I now have the ability to relate to all humans that are experiencing grief and the feeling, rather than thinking I don't relate to them because we haven't lived the same life. Now, I know that's a huge concept that I'm trying to explain, and to be honest, I'm not even sure if I've been able to use the correct words, but I think that this is a good spot to park today's episode, and I think we've got a little bit more diving in to do in the future, which will naturally happen over time. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I am sending you all the positive vibes and all of the positive energy as you're on this journey of becoming. I invite you to explore the tools to help you dance in duality and just normalize the fact that the roller coaster of life is a forever thing. Sending my love.
Thank you for being here on the Becoming Space podcast. These conversations are just the beginning, and if you feel drawn to explore deeper, my coaching space is open by application for those who are ready to step into more of who they truly are. I'd love to connect. You can find me on Instagram at Zisha Aspin. If you're enjoying the Becoming Space podcast, I'd love for you to follow, leave a review, and share it with someone you love to share the love. You are exactly where you are meant to be. There's no rush, no right way, only your way. See you next time.
Of feelings.